better watch out if your enemy's a road ahead of full prophecy to be the greatest beast the world has ever seen. I feed him every day like the bones clean. I feed him all the hate and he grows me. And he gets caught real big, gets off quick. And if you cross him, you might drop dead. Metaphorically, of course, settling the score. Never getting bored, lots of blood and gore. Always wanting more, freedom from the source. They don't really listen until they feel the force of party. If you start shit, you be hard-lived in the darkness. Torn apart quick, you left scars ripped. You be chewed up and discarded. And this world ain't right, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it. Once it's in your mind, it's infectious. So fight for your life and reject it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Voice of Reason. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Thank you for tuning in. We, unfortunately, are going to be talking about something that we said was going to happen, and it finally happened. Not officially, because Trump's a dipshit and thinks he can just unilaterally declare things, which is not how it works.
Almost like, a king.
Ugh, barf. But the Department of Education is now at risk. But he is not, he can't officially dismantle the Department of Education, but he can do a whole lot of damage in the process, even if it gets voted down. Which is a very good possibility, even with Republicans controlling the House. We don't hopefully think they don't have the votes, but we shall see. But we're going to go over what the Department of Education did, because Google searches went through the roof again for what does the Department of Education do? But it went up after the election again.
Oh, so like tariffs? What a tariff do?
Yeah, what is a tariff? Vote? Let me look that up after I voted in the office. Okay. Tariffs are bad. Darn it. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we're back in that situation again. What does the Department of Education do? So we're going to talk about that, and we need to talk about what you should expect, especially if you have a kid with a disability, a kid on an IEP, a kid needs any kind of special services whatsoever that is federally funded. Or funded, or we're going to talk about how the funding works, because regardless of what MAGA thinks, the Department of Education never has set curriculum. The states have always set curriculum. So if you live in a state that has a shitty school system, it's because of your state.
It's really that simple. It is.
Right. And now Donald Trump, right. So their solution now is to give it to the states. So the states have already screwed up the education system in certain parts of the country. So now, apparently they're going to solve their own problem, because they are the problem. Like, this is, again, Donald Trump trying to solve a problem with the problem. I just don't understand the logic behind all of this. But this administration is so incompetent, which makes it, I think, exponentially more dangerous than we realize.
Because they have no regard for any of the consequences of their actions. And this is one of those moves, even though it's likely not going to actually become a thing, and we'll show why. Closing the Department of Education is one of those moves that would have such wide-ranging ramifications. This country might not survive the closure. And at the very least, we'll finally make America great again, right? By going back to the 50s before civil rights movement, because that's what they wanted. Right. We'll show you how that's their plan. Because,
So not only are you going to take, let's be honest, red states rely a lot on government funding. So let's just play this scenario out. You voted for Trump. So they're going to take your food stamps. They're going to take your Social Security, your disability, and then they're also going to take away your kids' education. How much more do they have to take from you before you admit that they just suckered you into voting for them? They promised you the world. They promised you riches. They promised your bank account is just magically going to get bigger as soon as Donald Trump gets into office. And look at what's happening. Just take some of you got to take responsibility for this. We know Donald Trump never going to, but some of you got to take responsibility for your actions. I would just like to hear somebody go, you know what? I am so sorry for voting for Donald Trump. I would love to hear that just one time from a Trump voter. I know that's asking a lot, but all right. So it's not just going to be me and Mike today, rambling on the show. We do have somebody that knows a lot about the education system. She's a lifelong educator. She was retired and chilling until, groups like Moms for Liberty decided to pop up and stick their fascist noses into our school system. And
Oh, I
and
thought they
spread
stuck
this.
their fascist noses up something else, but my mistake. My mistake.
It's somewhere. But anyway, welcome back to the show. You guys know who it is. She's been here plenty of times. She's a regular now. So, Liz, welcome back to the show.
Hi, guys.
I wish it was under better circumstances once again. But damn it. I swear to God, these people.
Well, you know what's really funny? We wouldn't have even met each other, let alone Liz, let alone all the awesome people that we have met and now we consider friends, and we look forward to meeting in person, and we just have made such an amazing community, and this wouldn't have happened with the chaos. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that we have the desire to build a community to resist this. We are building a community, not just us, but all of us that are aware of what's going on are fighting back. We're doing the best we can. And right now, the best we can do that is through educating people.
Exactly.
Liz, I don't think you could disagree with that.
No,
we got to
not at all.
educate.
Yeah.
But-
And it's tiring because, I mean, I've been doing this work for 3 years specifically to stop Moms for Liberty, but I've been, really pushing this information out for 30 something years at this point.
Right.
And
So you've been indoctrinating children for 30 something years, I see.
well, yeah, there was that too. I, indoctrinated all those kindergartners so that they would become gay.
Yeah. How
That
dare
was,
you teach them tie their
what my
shoes
career
because their
was.
parents
I
did.
know, right? I don't understand this logic of I don't understand that I mean, we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to just create a stupid society that's just able to be subjugated easily. I mean, that's the only way you're going to be able to control 300 million people.
Right.
You have to dumb down the society into thinking that this is just the way things are supposed to be. I refuse, because I raised 2 kids, okay? I'm a single dad. I've had custody of my kids since they were 8 and 10 years old. Was I a perfect father? Absolutely not. I made tons of mistakes, right? I mean, yeah. And I can tell you, raising a kid in the United States when you're poor, or when you're just, not even, because there is no middle class in America anymore, and there hasn't been for a very long time.
No.
So raising a kid in America, like some of these people that have money are like, oh yeah, just find a daycare and take like they don't comprehend what it's like when you lose everything, or when you're in a situation where you can't afford to buy diapers for your own child. Like, I've been in that situation. And to have a daughter who was born deaf and require special services that you can't afford, that you rely on like the state and the federal government for programs for, like, because she was born deaf. So I needed a sign language interpreter. And eventually I got so tired of it, I had to end up sending her to a state-funded school. I hate to say it was, they went there during the week and they came out. It was a regular school and it's state-funded. And
Well, this is funny.
The county covered the transportation. But in the Trump administration, so she got a great education. Everything was state of the art, and it was all specifically catered towards deaf children from K through college. And without that school, if she would have just kept getting, because I live in a small area, so there was no services for deaf children at the time.
Look, there's not good
she's 21
services
now.
in well-funded areas.
No.
Okay?
So imagine just like that resource could be taken away because it's state funded. Anything they want to keep as much of this. It's all about money, because the Department of Education. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant.
No.
Department of Education is worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year. People, that's what they're after.
Privatization.
Right.
They want to make money off your kids' education instead of the dividend for education being a better society, a growing society with a stable future for its kids and its future generations. The Republican Party and the Christian nationalists want to monetize your education so they can make money off of it. Just like the post office is a service, okay? It's not supposed to make money. Education department.
I know.
The dividend is the education. You don't need to
Right.
show a cost-benefit analysis for education. That's not a thing.
Right.
But
If you I just see exactly, like, if you give your population an amazing education, then they can help build an amazing future and take us into the future.
Well,
these people we're devolving as a country. We're literally going backwards.
Look, it's a whole other show, but we could do a whole parallel on why a lot of these groups aren't really worried about a future. either for religious reasons or because they're just creating such a horde and a bunker mentality that they don't care what happens in the future. They will survive and they will live in their golden towers.
Let's be honest. This has been a Republican agenda since the Reagan administration and since the inception of the Heritage Foundation, which was around the same time.
Surprising.
Coincidence? Now they finally have somebody dumb enough in office to do everything. This is right out of their playbook.
You know, let's start at a very good place. He is dumb, but he's dangerously stupid. And the scary part is that now he is officially doing things like he's a king. And if you look at what's gone on in the last 50 days, almost all of his big signing and all of his executive orders, they've been overturned or delayed by all the courts because the president doesn't have the actual power to cancel an entire department created by Congress. Here's something by Tristan Snell, who, if you don't know, you should definitely follow him. He does a great job of breaking things down. Trump does not have power to abolish the Department of Education. Any attempt is illegal and abuse of power. Even the Trump-aligned Heritage Foundation, which released Project 2025, concluded the president lacks unilateral power to kill a department without Congress. And yet, Donald Trump staged a whole little thing where he has kids behind him and he's going to sign something that destroys their futures. Hey, look, at least
and has them holding it up. They have no idea what they're holding up. God.
I have to make some comments on those slides. Absolutely. The one on the left, he really fits right in with that age group, doesn't he?
Mentally, he's probably a little below them.
You know, writing over like that, like the kids are doing at their desks. And then the other observation is these are all kids that are sitting there in school uniforms. And school uniforms, for the most part anyway, are from private schools.
Yep.
So these are, planted, and they made sure to put a black child right in the front there.
Gotta have your little token, right?
Gotta have that image.
Yeah.
And
he's not racist. He's helping a black kid.
It was truly meant to insult. That's why it was done that way. No other executive order has had, that kind of involvement. It's usually him at the desk with maybe one or two people behind him. This was putting on a show.
This
one thing
I was
that I'm
furious.
trying to figure out is
furious about this.
Why would you put someone in charge of your Department of Education and then immediately tell them to get rid of their own job? Like, that's the level of whatever that's what we're doing now. You went through the whole thing, had her approved by Congress, whatever. And then her first day on the job, you're like, get rid of your job. And she's like, yes, Mr. Trump.
Yeah. So
when you put a billionaire in charge of the Department of Education and her goal is to destroy the Department of Education,
I'm glad you brought her up.
What does she have to worry about it? Her kids went to private school in Greenwich, Connecticut. Okay.
Yeah.
Her kids were heirs to the WWE empire. There's never been anyone less in touch with the department they put in. Even and I'm gonna there's a lot of goofy people in different cabinet positions now that have no background in the areas that they're in charge of.
Oh my
Linda
God!
McMahon might be the least qualified for the position she's
in. Here, I have a video of her. She's on Fox News talking to Laura Ingraham. And she's just, you could tell she's just spouting talking points that she's been given. And then she asked her, though, the most simple question. She's just like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, she is so incompetent. It makes me sick. Here, just watch this video real quick.
Expenditures and key programs?
Correct. Congress appropriates the money that is going through Title I to IDEA programs.
What's that stand for?
You know what? I'm not sure I can tell you exactly what it stands for, except that it's the Programs for Disabled and Needs.
Individuals with Disabilities Act, I think. Yeah. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know all my acronyms. I've been here for 30 years.
This is my 5th day on the job, and I'm really trying to learn them very quickly.
Right. It's a lot. So,
oh, my God. Yes, my first day on the job. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Rule 1, if you don't know what an acronym stands for, do not use it.
Right. Oh my God! It was like I did a video the other day of RFK Jr. as he is another notoriously unqualified person for the job he's been given, but he's reading off ingredients. He's like, these are ingredients like nobody even knows what they are. And one of them was riboflavin.
Riboflavin.
And he couldn't pronounce it First of all, and I was like, yeah, that was one of my points. Like, if you can't pronounce the words, maybe you shouldn't be in charge of like knowing which one is good or not. But riboflavin is just vitamin B, y'all. And that's all it is.
Did you ever see the videos of people where they were like, oh man, you got to watch out. That stuff has dihydrogen oxide in it or something like that. And they're like, what is that? Water, guys.
Water.
No, but to be honest, we need to understand where the Department of Education came from. Because the idea of it, before it was officially the Department of Education, the origins could be traced back to around 1867 when the first department of this name was established by Congress. Its charge back then was very different and mostly focused on collecting statistics about schools and disseminating some best educational practices. Again, not setting curriculum, just explaining to a bunch of schoolhouses who were run by random women in the community and told your job is either to clean that house or go teach those kids. And they were just, they all, I'm sure, took their job seriously, did the best they could with reading, writing, and arithmetic, but there were no standards. There was nothing to make sure kids in Oklahoma, kids in New York, and kids in Alabama have even remotely a similar education. How do you have a country of functional people if you can't even standardize the education? And to digress for a moment, this is always going to be our problem, that we are this collection of states instead of a unified country. The people that want, quote, states' rights to be the most unilateral answer to every question, those are the people that don't want to be part of a country. Okay, right. Those states want to be run as little principalities to do whatever they want. Then when there's a disaster, they want federal money. When their schools can't be funded, they want federal money. When there's a hurricane, they want federal money. But don't tell me that there's gay kids, that it's okay. We're not going to put that in classrooms. Right. So we're not talking about people and states and elected officials that are interested in any way of creating an educated population. Educated populations are the enemy of tyranny and fascism.
These people hate kids, man.
They do. But let's look. How does it evolve? Well, nowadays, before it was, quote, dismantled, the department has been largely responsible for oversight, enforcing discrimination laws, and distributing aid money for schools with low-income students and students with disabilities. That low-income part is very important because, again, did you notice how it didn't say set curriculum standards, ensure everyone's taught XYZ? As Jeremy said to open the show, curriculum is left to the states. Parents have a say in their curriculum. They may not realize it because parents tend to not do anything involved in their kids' education. They don't go to school boards. They don't read the lists of book bans to make sure that libraries are carrying things they are interested in. People have the right, the privilege, and the opportunity to help govern and parent their own kids, and they don't take it. Instead, they wait for a tyrant to go, look what's happening to your kids, and they go, oh, save us. We're so independent-minded. We need someone to save us from this. Okay, but let's not go there. The Department of Education, as we know it today, was established by Congress in the 1979 Department of Education Organization Act after calls for expanded federal funding in education and national efforts to help racial minorities, women, people with disabilities, and non-English speaking students gain equal access to education. In other words, it forced states to provide educational resources some would otherwise withhold from certain groups. Why? Because groups in the South are racist and bigoted. Sorry, most of them tend to have a history of withholding financial assistance, educational assistance, financial equity, owning homes, owning land from who? Black people, women, other minorities. So we needed something to help force bigoted states to teach kids that they didn't want to teach. Yeah. It's really not that complicated.
Exactly. But yeah, they're going after Title IX, I think, is one of the ones they hate.
Yep.
And special education is another thing. They immediately would cut those.
Look at the parallel. I'm going to do it real quick because I don't want this to be one of those conversations. But if you look at what other groups in history have targeted trans people, LGBTQ people, special education people, people with Down syndrome, people with other physical abilities, mental disabilities, there's another group that we tend to malign that tried that already and did a pretty horrifying job with it. And guess what? Who did Donald Trump start with? Trans people, LGBTQ. Now we're headed towards segregation because if you think this isn't about segregation, you're not.
You're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself. This is about privatization and segregation.
Correct.
100%. Okay. Do not deny yourself, just accept it, and we need to figure out how to fight against this.
Now,
but this is going to get tied up legally.
You throw money in the mix, and then you have the three legs of what's actually going on.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
always follow the money, always follow the bigotry, and always follow who's benefiting from it. But let's take a closer look, because I think it's important to understand this all goes wrapped together with DEI and all of that. DEI doesn't mean black people. That's what it means to Christian right-wing Republicans. What DEI means is people who have wheelchairs can expect ramps in public amenities. People that might have dyslexia can be expected to have a little bit extra help in class to be able to function alongside with their other peers. People with Down syndrome who are perfectly capable of actually living wonderful lives can be part of a normal education program if they just have a few extra help here and there. But so don't take my word for it. The National Down Syndrome Society talks about the Department of Education and what it does specifically for special needs kids. The Department of Ed ensures students with disabilities receive a free, appropriate public education. It enforces critical federal programs like IDEA, which Linda McMahon didn't understand, and provides funding and accountability for special education. It does not decide how or what to teach students. Graduation requirements, teacher certification requirements, or teacher pay. These decisions are made by state and local educational agencies. So why does special education need to remain under the jurisdiction of the Department of Education? The Department of Education and its staff have the necessary knowledge and experience to ensure students with disabilities have access to specialized instruction, accommodations, and relevant services in school. Reducing staff or moving the core functions of the department to any other department or agency could result in severe disruption in service, delivery, and quality of education. I did a little research. At any given time over the past 30 years, the Department of Education has had about 4,000 employees. Think about that. Okay. And with 4,000 employees, they managed to do the best they can to fight a bunch of states trying to fight them to ensure that kids have access to equal and fair education. And they're trying to destroy it.
Well, according to Donald Trump, these people are just out playing golf all the time. I kid you not. I kid you not.
Tracker at today.
Let me I have a video.
Calling the kettle black.
Yeah, I have a video of Donald Trump talking about how proud he is. He's about to sign this thing, and I want you to just watch him sign it because this is a big deal.
Did he auto sign it?
No, this one he personally did sign, on camera. So this time he can't deny it. Like he's now denying. He's like, I never signed the Alien Enemies Act. I don't know who did it. It's so stupid. It's like I don't understand this guy. But yeah, he just accused Biden of using auto pen, and now he's like, I didn't sign that. And it's like, oh my God. Okay, let me play this real quick. Just absorb this because this is important. As much as I don't want to show this, it's important to see his ugly face and what he's doing to your kids.
Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments, I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all.
Anybody superstitious? Ron, are you superstitious? Let's use that same pen.
Yep, let's destroy kids' lives right in front of them. Right in front of them.
He really thinks he's signing a decree. Again, every single decision he has made in the last 50 or so days has been challenged or outright shut down by court. When he goes to his people and says and stands in front of them, look at all these things that I've done by executive order. None of them are actually happening. Some of them are. Some people, there are court decisions that have told the Trump administration to reinstate 6, 7, 8,000 people it fired illegally. The getting rid of the Department of Education the way Trump is trying to is illegal. It will not stand. And I'll tell you right now, evidence is starting to lead me to believe that the Supreme Court might be just enough self-interested that they will not let Donald Trump get away with all this stuff.
I have a little bit of hope. I have a little bit of hope because and we talked about this before, that Donald Trump was going to overstep his bounds and make almost he wants to make the Supreme Court irrelevant. I mean, he has to if he wants to declare himself king. There can't be a court that can overrule the king. That's not a thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's not how it works. But they I'm sorry. Go ahead, Liz.
I was just going to say, somebody in the comments really raised what my concern is with all of that, right?
Yeah.
Is how do people clap for that kind of an action? And
I know
how it happens is that he fills the room with people that are supposed to clap.
It's all performative.
So it is. It's all performative. Right. That wasn't
it's his
a
yes
press
men.
conference.
Yeah,
that
it's his yes men.
With a room full of his sycophants. Yep, absolutely.
Project 2025 authors.
Yep.
There's no one like that's going to be at these events. Okay, because if anything, Donald Trump understands the power of holding an event and making something appear bigger than it is.
Yeah,
you're not going to see anyone speak against him when he's signing these things.
Correct.
Right.
The optics for him are the only thing that matters, and that might be his downfall. Is he doesn't understand optics outside of his own perspective. So he thinks he's got this on lockdown. Well, yeah, maybe the mainstream news isn't covering all the protests and all the outrage, but it's still happening. Yes, Donald Trump might not even know it's happening, because if there's anyone that wants to be coddled at all costs, it's Donald Trump. Yeah. So I don't know that he knows certain things aren't going the way that he thinks they are.
Look,
who knows?
I'm going to say it as plainly as I can. And Liz, excuse my language, I'm actually going to apologize beforehand this time. But these people are fucking monsters. The guy that's in charge of the Social Security. So he was like, nobody's getting payments this month because a judge ruled against Elon Musk. What? What are you talking about? Social Security's never missed a payment, and you're going to cut everybody's fucking Social Security off because of a court ruling?
Well, how about
that wasn't in your favor? I'm like, oh my God. And people are like, yeah.
Well, let me tell you.
What are you clapping at, you morons? Sorry, I'm done. I'm done.
I believe it was eons ago, Elon that stated that, they don't have to worry. People will just make up for it next month when they get their check. And it really is an example of the folks that are in charge right now have absolutely no idea about people's lives.
No clue.
How we actually live.
No.
And that, I won't say granny anymore because now I'm in Social Security, but people depend on those funds on a monthly basis. You can't just go out and skip a month.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about people that they don't even bring their own kids to the daycare that they can have no problem paying for. Yeah. We're talking about people that don't understand that buying your kid a $50,000 first birthday present is a little ridiculous. We're talking about people who don't pay their own electric bill, who don't pay for their own cable, barely even drive themselves to and from wherever they're going to go. We're talking about people that don't even know what their monthly payment is to exist, let alone know what it's like to live, not just paycheck from paycheck, but some people don't even have that luxury and have to suffer even when they get paid. That is so foreign to
of the politicians has been to convince people that they do understand, to convince people that they're on their side.
Yep.
Right.
No, they're not, because they don't understand. They've never lived it.
They convince people that Donald Trump understands their woes, and AOC, who was a waitress, doesn't understand because she's a coastal elite.
I know.
Right now? Come on.
No, they're under the misconception that, now I don't even know how I want to phrase that, but yeah, they like you said, though, they convinced just tens of millions of people that somehow the Department of Education is bad. They're teaching their kids a woke agenda. They're indoctrinating them. They're grooming them.
They're making them have sex change operations against their will.
They have a magic sex change operation machine at school that does the whole process in 2 days, apparently. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently under the Trump administration, they've been telling their people that's the thing.
We could rant about this all day, but again, let's get back to some facts. We've said several times already today. No, I do. I'm just as culpable of it.
Yeah, it's hard not to look at everything that's going on,
because it's all
but it's meant to be that way. So many things are being dropped on us that it's meant to overwhelm us. So, and I too listen to all the news, and, I have to focus on my lane, I guess, and that is saving public education within the country, because I believe it's the foundation of democracy.
It is. Now let's look at we keep saying segregation. So let's look at the numbers, okay? Because what we just learned through a bunch of different slides, which is all valid information, you can go look at it yourself. The Department of Education does not set policy. It makes sure that all the school systems in this country, throughout all the states, have some basic standard for students. Well, who's it going to actually affect most when the federal government no longer provides funding to states? I'm curious, which states and school systems rely on the most on federal aid for K through 12? This is a share of total school system revenue from federal sources as of fiscal year 2022. It's a little older, but it doesn't matter. It shows the point. Among states, number the most to the least: Mississippi, South Dakota, Montana, Alaska,
10, all of them.
Arkansas, North Carolina, Kentucky, Arizona, Oklahoma, Tennessee. What do they have in common?
Well, and you look at that top list of states, that is a straight out list of red states.
The ones with the lowest graduation rates, the highest teen pregnancy rates, the highest drug use rates, the least amount of literacy rates. Well, let's look at who it will hurt even more specifically, because among the 100 largest school systems by enrollment, Detroit gets 48% of its funding from the government. Now, let's look at some other states: Tennessee, North Carolina, Texas, Alabama, Texas, Pennsylvania, Texas. Guess what we're talking about? These aren't just inner city. And what color people tend to live in those cities? Black and brown people. So the federal government is ensuring that states that would otherwise withhold funding from minority school districts get somewhat of a fair shot. So when you kick back the school's funding to the states, what you get is segregation. Maybe not officially yet, we're getting there, but you're going to get monetary segregation. Schools are going to be even more opposed in what kids get what services. And guess what? Those white lily-livered schools, they're suddenly going to be like, well, we don't want this type of people living in these areas. And then they could start segregating through housing, through businesses, through other things, so that only rich white people can live in certain areas.
Right. But then they can also teach basically whatever the hell they want. Curriculum wise, they can set their own standards because there's no government oversight. There's no federal oversight.
So which means if a school district in Alabama says the only thing we have to teach to get a kid through high school is the Bible, they'll be able to do that. And then guess who's not going to get a job? That kid, because they don't know anything about the real world. So don't forget, this is about our future. And the future that the Republicans want is one where we are all subservient to a ruling class. We already have that ruling class. It's called capitalism and billionaires, but they want to make it even more stark and more permanent and more suffering for people, because suffering is always the point. Don't take it from me. Our representatives are starting to say these things. Let's be clear. The Department of Education exists because states wouldn't fund poor schools, wouldn't protect kids with disabilities, wouldn't follow civil rights laws, especially in the South. Anyone calling to abolish it is calling to turn back the clock, and we can't let this happen. What does that mean? We can talk about this all day. This is
Donald
what
Trump
it means.
is making segregation great again, is what he's doing.
This is what it means. This is what it means. I hope you all know the name Ruby Bridges.
Yeah.
Because they're going to try and erase it from history. In 1960, a 10-year-old Ruby Bridges was escorted to the first integration of black kids into white schools. And this kid received death threats, received bullying from kids, parents, police officers, politicians. And now she's one of the most important civil rights icons we have ever had in this country. And they're going to try and erase her from existence, like they erased Jackie Robinson's military history from the Department of Defense. Like they're erased, like they got rid of the Tuskegee Airmen from the Department of Defense. They're trying to erase civil rights from our history so that those schools that are now segregated can tell white kids, well, black people never accomplished anything. Everything you have is because of white people. That's what they're trying to do.
Listen, like this, I don't think people understand how serious it is that these people have access to all this stuff. They have access to the archives. That's like America's entire history. Every major thing that's happened in the United States since inception, and basically is in there, and they can.
Jeremy, your point. I saw someone post something earlier today before the show that really, I knew it, I didn't really articulate it. Scrubbing the archives and getting rid of everything online is digital book burning, because we like to laugh that without books, you still have information online. No,
That's absolutely
not if the government controls the internet and gets rid of all that information.
Right, because where do we get most of our? I get almost all my information from the internet. You know what I mean? Like, you guys actually read shit and sit down and read books. I'm like, my attention span's not that long anymore. But that's crazy, because that's a good way to put it. Digital book burning. That's what we should call it from now on.
We spoke
that is
before the
really
show.
what we should focus on from now on.
I want you to talk about this a little bit, because we know when segregation was. We like to pretend it didn't exist. A lot of people in the North never saw it. Okay, we know what racism is. My grandparents knew what racism was, but they never saw segregation. And when they went down to the South and they saw it, they were like, "Shit, this is real." Liz, you taught in schools. What did you see in schools? Did you see any ghosts of segregation?
Oh, definitely ghosts. And it took me a while to figure it out, right? I thought maybe it was just because there were so many kids at my school. But when I realized that there were 2 water fountains kind of next to each other, all that was missing was the whites only sign over one of those. And that's, within the 2000s when I was still in education. That goes to
show you the funding schools get, that they can't even modernize. Think about that. They took the sign down, but there are black kids that walk by those 2 water fountains every day. The white kids don't even think about it. I guarantee you almost all the black kids think about it.
That's horrible. But I saw the craziest thing today.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Jesus, Jeanette. Thank you so much. Always.
Thank you.
Threw me off track. What was I going to say? I was at the gym today. Like, this is how dystopian this whole scenario is. Okay, so I'm at the gym, and Fox News is on. Unfortunately, on one of the things, Planet Fitness.
Really, that's what people need to watch when they're working out.
Right, we need to talk. So, all right. So Donald Trump's administration has been deporting as many Latino people as they can. They've been deporting gang members that aren't gang members to the worst prison in the world. And Fox News is celebrating National Tamale Day. I'm like, you sons of bitches. Me? I actually said it out loud when I saw it, and there was a person next to me, and I was like, oh, because you know me. I just blurt shit out. I'm like, sons of bitches. And I looked over. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. But I just could not believe they have the audacity to sit there and televise Donald Trump's, racist attack against Latino people, and at the same time be like, I love tamales.
I'm going to say it again. Donald Trump promised us in 2016 that we would have taco trucks on every corner. I still haven't seen a taco truck on any corner, and I would be the happiest.
Did he really promise
in the world?
That?
Well, he was threatening that if you don't elect me and you elect Hillary, we're going to be inundated with people selling tacos, which, by the way, might be the greatest threat.
Yeah, I was like, how is that a bad thing? Like, that's a reason to vote for Hillary.
I just read something this morning, and I haven't vetted it, but it was from a legitimate source, that the United States is the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, the reason that Donald Trump wants to declare English the official language of America is for 2 reasons. 1, he's an idiot. And 2, he's a racist. So he doesn't even understand that we're already half and half. You go to France, they got signs in 3 languages. You go to Japan, they have signs in like 3 or 4 languages. You go anywhere in Europe, the average European speaks more than 1 language. Okay, right. The almost everyone in Switzerland, in all those countries up there, speak English as clearly as you or I, and that's their second language. Mm-hmm. Only in America are we like, yo, you speak 2.5 languages? Well, 2 of them you have a funny accent. You're an idiot.
Yeah, that's weird. Country. I don't understand it either. Really? But this is their logic. Like, right now, Donald Trump's arguing that Russia should get to keep parts of Ukraine because like 60% of the people in that area speak Russian. That's that's how they're really doing the law. So I'm like, well, okay, I'm pretty sure there's like parts of Texas that are probably like 85% Spanish speaking.
Hey, Texas back.
Mexico,
Texas back.
By their logic, you go, all right, so we're getting off topic a little bit here, but I'm sorry, but this
I'll kind of pull us back, because that that kind of is the premise of everything that has unfolded.
Yeah.
That's what has driven the fear that has caused this popularity within the Republican Party and for Trump. The fear that we will no longer be a majority. And that's what the statistics tell us. I think it's in the 2030s somewhere where white will no longer be the majority within this country.
That terrifies
and that's really
racism.
scary to so many people.
Like,
Gives a shit.
I find
God, get over it.
I wake up every morning, and the days that I actually maintain some grooming standards, I look in the mirror and I don't see a white guy. Now, that is my privilege, okay? I get that. But even if I did and I go, okay, I'm a white guy, there's nothing about the color of my skin that makes me inherently better than anyone. But there are a lot of people in this country that wake up every day and go, yes, I'm white. This is awesome.
They have the mentality, though.
They've
been programmed to think that somehow they are not like if the government gives the black community something, they're like, well, that should be mine. You know what I mean? They don't want anybody else to have anything.
Well, it's greed.
They feel like they're somehow getting ripped off. Like if they take that away from that community, that we can have it and keep it to ourselves.
I think it's all linked because, and again, I'm going on a bit of a conspiratorial thing, but not really. All of this is linked. Racism, bigotry, capitalism, and extreme religion are the same concept. It's maintaining control for the few at the exclusion of the majority. And notice how we call anyone non-white a minority. That's not even true. There's probably more brown people in the United States than white people now. There's so many more. There's probably at least half as many people that speak Spanish. That's not a minority. But we refer to people as minorities so that these racists can go, look at those minorities. You're the majority. You're good. You're white. You're going to make money. It's all you. If we give money to everyone, how will you get more money than them? Like it's
make America great again truly means make America white again.
Which the irony, it never was. There is no point in American history that the
it was more
we
so,
are on,
but as they're seeing that slip away, that's where the fear is. So
how about this? America may have been white at one point, but the people that built this country have never been white because it was either slaves building the entire economy. It was Chinese people who were essentially treated like slaves that built our railroads so that we could do more cross-country destruction.
I think it's always, I mean, on top of the racism, like you said, capitalism is just another form of oppression. When a small percentage of the people control all the money, there's no opportunity. They give you the illusion of opportunity. They think, maybe one day I'll be a billionaire, even though, I live in a trailer held up by duct tape. One day, though,
you'll be a billionaire without going to school, by the way. Having no education, you'll somehow become a billionaire.
Right.
Sister Kendra has some really great commentary throughout.
Oh, yeah. She's been knocking it out of the park.
Let me play the video that you sent me.
Okay.
It's really good. The one from TikTok. And I don't know this person's name. I apologize. But she just...
it's Christy, and she's the head and founder of, with another Christine, actually, I think is the other. It's like two Christies, so it's kind of hard. But they're called Our Schools USA, a wonderful organization that we try to partner with as much as possible. And she did this TikTok, which people can look up after this show and see the entire length of it. But she really summarized what's going on.
Yep, I took about a minute and a half out of the middle of it. So, but I definitely recommend going to the TikTok and watching the full video. And then we also want to talk about the protest that's coming up here in a little bit too. That it's in the works. We'll talk about it here in a little bit.
And so your local school board and your county and your state already control so much of what's happening in your schools. They control how teachers are treated, which I saw them reference during the press conference. They control how much teachers are paid. They control the curriculum. They control learning standards. They control strategies that they want their schools to use. That is already at the control of your local government. So this idea that we are giving things back to the state is just complete spin of misinformation to try to get people to be on board with completely dismantling the Department of Education. What the federal Department of Education does do is to ensure the civil rights of all students are not violated and to make sure that every student has access to a free and appropriate public education. When you don't have that safety guard in place anymore, you are leaving the states, especially states who do not care about violating civil rights, with no checks and balances in place. That is the threat we are facing here. You are going to be looking at a patchwork of education services across the country. There are red states that we all know do not value civil rights of certain populations of students. And when the Department of Education does not have an Office of Civil Rights to seek retribution with or to get help from, those students will be left with no one to help them, and their quality of education will decline or even disappear altogether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's wonderful. That's a great summary of a lot. It's actually a perfect lean-in. If you'll indulge me, I want to read a couple of quotes. The president of the National Education Association. Now, I'll add the caveat, I'm not this huge union pusher or anything, but this current president seemed to have a really good handle on what's going on. She stated, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have aimed their wrecking ball at public schools and the futures of the 50 million students in rural, suburban, and urban communities across America by dismantling public education to pay for tax handouts for billionaires. If successful, and this is what I want folks to really lean in on, Trump's continued actions will hurt all students by sending class sizes soaring. That means an impact to every student. Cutting job training programs, making higher education more expensive and out of reach for middle-class families, and taking away special education services for students with disabilities, and gutting student civil rights protections. She summed it all up. And that's why the attacks, and that's why it is so critical that we push back on a lot of this that is happening. And, I've said all along, they've got brilliant strategy within the Republican Party and within the Heritage Foundation and within Moms for Liberty. And all of these things have all folded together into this, anti-American movement that has developed. Because as you've seen in this country, the majority of people don't support the things that are going on. It was not a majority, it was not a mandate when Trump and the administration that he pulled together was put into office.
No.
People do not support what's happening. And as Mike referred to, there is an uprising happening. And someone in the comments stated that they felt like there would be a new awakening with people understanding, and that the outcome will be something that's good. And I've said it before, and I apologize if it's Pollyanna, but I think teachers and public education are going to come out better in the end run of all of this that's happening, because people are starting to feel it. Yes, unfortunately, some people have to feel something personally in order for them to get involved.
They got to touch the stove.
But it's happening. When your child's class raises from, what used to be 16 kids in kindergarten to 28 or 30 in a kindergarten class, then they're going to say, wait a minute. And it's that wait a minute moment that I'm not going to sit on my hands and wait around for people to make that. They will eventually. It's the FAFO, right?
But they already think teachers are overpaid. I mean, what kind of educators? What kind of educators
almost every
are we going to
teacher
attract?
buys pencils and pens for their own students. Think about that.
Well, and I'm not even sure that you can say that people think teachers are overpaid. I think they think that teachers do a lot less than they actually do. They think that teachers have summers off.
Yep.
I'm here to tell you, I never had a summer off. I was always in training. I was always preparing for the upcoming school year. So, all they did was take a 12-month salary and spread it in 10 months' time.
I think what people need to understand is, we've said it a million times, and I'm going to say it one more time. The whole point of everything this administration is doing is to create a country where rich white people have everything. And all you need to know to prove that is when they tell you we're going to defund schools, you don't need higher education, the coastal elites, you put that over here, and then you look at who goes to colleges, who's still sending their kids to colleges, all the rich white people. Okay,
Man,
so if they're still sending their kids to colleges, then they believe those colleges, those degrees are necessary for a certain measure of success.
Yeah.
And if they're going to do everything in their power to take away that ability from the masses, who's that left for? Because right now, right, Donald Trump's goofy 19-year-old kid is in school. If he didn't need, right, if Donald Trump says we don't need all these higher education, we don't need that, why is he sending his kid to school?
At NYU, I think.
Yeah, NYU.
Yeah, NYU.
Not a cheap school. It's a great school. Why is he sending them there?
Somebody made a comment, you can't get a parent to return a damn phone call half the time. And I really want to speak to that because that sums up what this parents' rights, put up my double quotation marks, this parents' rights movement is about. Parents have for decades lacked accountability, have lacked participation, and it's absolutely true. The ones that we need to get in touch with are usually the ones hardest to get in touch with, right? So now they've been prompted to be involved in this attack method instead of simply using the rights that they've always had. Moms for Liberty states that they are a parents' rights movement and that they are getting parents the rights that they so richly deserve. Things like being able to see what curriculum is in the school. They've already been able to do that. At least, 30 years that I've been involved in education.
Instead of doing this and focusing on all this nonsense that they shouldn't be involved in, why don't they focus on stopping school shootings? Or why don't they focus on, feeding kids in school? Because Republicans are, for whatever reason, we can't even get a public school free lunch federally. That is, for some reason, so hard. And then you got guys like Elon Musk, who could literally fund school lunch for the entire country himself, and they're like, "Oh no, we can't afford that. That's wasteful spending." Unreal.
Europe, look at Japan. Look at all these other countries.
Leaving us.
Not
in the dust,
only
man.
is food assumed in school, okay, the quality of the food is better than what the average person eats after working 40 hours a week and buying whatever they buy. The kids in other countries, maybe because, the average people that live in those countries has a little bit more smarts because we're dumbing down the people in this country. But everyone realizes you can't learn if you're starving. And even if you eat, if it's crap, you're not feeding your body the right way. So every other country seems to understand education and quality food go hand in hand. Let's make a better society by giving our kids food and education. It's really not complicated.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, even the food issue would be huge if Moms for Liberty got behind that. They supposedly put in this big guy into the, health department, this Kennedy guy, who is all about making food healthier. How about Moms for Liberty actually links in with him and they make an effort to make school lunches healthier? This
country's lost its damn mind
because they don't want to eat. Well, look, Liz, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. The Moms for Liberty is a subversive arm of the Republican Christian nationalist movement. Okay, their goal is to get parents terrified at what they don't know, which they should know because they should have some responsibility as parents. But this goes to a bigger thing, right? People think democracy just exists. They don't understand you have to continuously work to maintain democracy because the beauty of democracy is how fragile it is. It requires participation by the citizens. Well, education requires participation by the parents. Guess what? You have a right to participate in your democracy, always have. You have a right to participate in your kids' education, always have. But if you have these highly funded groups telling parents, you have no rights, we're going to get you those rights, and they're just lying to people, well, they're going to be terrified and believe whatever they're told for the sake of their kids.
Yeah. And I honestly think that, a little bit they've tapped into parent guilt. Because parents were hit over the head with this messaging of everything that's happening in your schools. And they all went, oh shit, that's actually happening in my child's school, which when they actually did the research, they found out, no, it wasn't happening. But that was the strategy to tap into that lack of involvement that has really grown. And I'm not blaming parents because I just want them to be better. because I understand things like parents that work several jobs, parents that work, night shift, and they have to sleep during the day. I understand where they're coming from, but don't come back and attack people like me that have dedicated our lives to teach
That's
their
what
children.
I'm saying. Like,
they don't want to take blame on themselves. And I think that's what a lot of this is. We live in a culture where we say you, the individual, should amass as much wealth and power as you can, but you don't have any responsibility to act any other way except to gain money and power. People think the teacher's job is to babysit their kids and maybe sprinkle in some education. No, your job as a parent, when you have kids, you are signing a social contract to raise your kids, to teach kids some basic humanity. School is there to educate on knowledge. Your job as a parent is to just make a kid not a piece of garbage. It's really as simple as that.
And I have to say, Mike, that, so much of that is spot on. And public schools, the consumer is not parents. The consumer is the community. And the public school mission is to help create good citizens within a community. Well, you can't do that by segregating and not teaching all children. My son at 10 years old, when, he was asked, you want to go to private school, said, no, I want to go to school in my community and stay with all of the kids in my community, because that's what a strong society is based on, that we all matter, that we all have access to things like education.
It's really funny because a lot of people that want to, and I'm not as opposed to homeschooling as I used to be, because I've had the benefit of meeting people in my life close to me that have proven that you can homeschool exceptionally good quality education. But those people that do that also integrate their kids into things like sports in their communities, into other things, because you still need to build interpersonal relationships. What the Christian right wants to do is get rid of the sense of community, because they now see that with community comes understanding, comes less bigotry, comes an acceptance of LGBTQ and other things. So they want to remove their kids from having any understanding of those things and keep education separate, so that little cells of people and parents can just put in a limited education and not get any social acceptance, any social.
We know the ultimate goal of Project 2025 is to turn this into a Christian nation, and you can't teach Christianity in public schools at the moment.
This is a good way to put it, Yvonne.
So, I mean, in most public schools, but that's what they want to turn it into, and you can't do that without first convincing the population that the current system is. You have to convince them it's evil.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Don't tell them they have the tools to help their kids' education. Tell them they don't have the tools.
Well, and a point related to homeschooling is I'm not against it, and I have some friends here that do a bang-up job.
Well,
and they have a little
is a perfect
association.
example.
Yeah, Addison's the smartest kid I've ever met.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would like to see happen as a solution, because if we look at education as the development piece of a society, then it should not be a free-for-all. And so homeschooling should have some regulations put in place.
Yeah.
As far as I know, currently, I haven't looked into it, in a year or two, but the only requirement was that a teacher at the end of their school year sign off on whoever the child is. And that's not really accountability for what is going on. No. And that's why I'm so opposed to these educational savings accounts and vouchers across the country, because it's taking public dollars and it's throwing it out there with little to no regulation.
Right.
And that's where you have problems like in Florida. We have had, this is not, just urban myth or something. We've had families that have taken their quote unquote homeschooling dollars and have bought passes to Disney World. Now, I guess you could, kind of justify that saying, oh, it's an educational experience. But really, I mean, it's kind of stretching. There's nothing that makes them accountable for that money. That's what I'm saying, because it's public dollars. So the public should be getting some feedback on, are those dollars being spent appropriately? Because that's my tax dollars being used to educate their children through a voucher.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I should still have some say.
Is Elon going to look into the wasteful spending of vouchers in that regard?
No, because that's
You
what
know
they
what
support.
That's what they want. So they really don't want. They don't care about stopping waste. They don't want to stop waste. What they want to stop is progress.
And
That's
it's of concern when across the country, the majority of people that are tapping into these funds are people that are already in the private setting in schools.
Yep.
So they can afford the
Right.
private schools. They're just getting this kickback now. And so I'll have to clarify too that for years we've had things, I'm not sure if they're nationally called this, but in Florida it was like McKay Scholarship and different scholarships that students could get if a public school could not meet their needs. So they would take that money and they would then go into the private setting, let's say a special education particular realm within a school that they were, like a deaf school, like Jeremy has shared about, right? And so I'm actually in a lot of support. If you can't get your needs met within a school setting, if there's a special need, if there's, just a physical inability for them to provide an education, I do think that those funds would be well spent to help that parent to get education for their children. But that's not what's happening. They're actually tapping into those pockets of money, pulling it from special education into these, I'll call them white bread folks that are applying for these funds to go to a local Christian school that you've already been going to for 5 years.
So another thing we didn't even touch base on is they are responsible for administering student loans, if I'm not mistaken, too,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Correct. Right now.
Pell Grants and direct
Which is
loans.
now going to be under the Small Business Administration. So if
Right,
you want
think
any
about
more
that.
proof that they're looking to privatize your student loans,
Absolutely.
there you go.
And nobody there knows anything about how student loans work. Okay, it's not like they're taking I don't know, as far as I'm aware, they're not just going to take the people too and put them on one big group.
Oh, no.
So they're just, it's going to be a nightmare. Good luck getting loans. Oh, they're also like, this is how evil these people are, okay? They're not, all right, so I talked about it a little bit earlier. I just want to touch base on it. Like, so they talked about cutting Social Security off. They talked about, I'm going to turn payments off because Elon Musk, whatever. But not only that, they're crippling Social Security, so it's got to be so ineffective that people are going to miss payments. They're cutting people. They cut the phone service, which 40% of the problems and ID verification, all that stuff is done currently by phone. So they're getting rid of that, and they're making it exponential. They're closing Social Security offices. I think there's 23 that I know of across the country that they're going to close. So they're making it harder for you to go in person. So they're just destroying it from the inside. They may not be getting rid of it, but they're going to make it so it just doesn't run.
Well, I do want to cover some slides Liz sent us last minute because I think they're really important.
Mike, if I might, I just want to address whoever this person is, the last crime.
Yeah, I know.
You're a troll person.
Yeah, we got a
You
troll.
have completely lost me, Liz. Well, I want to reassure you that I was never trying to find you.
Yeah, we gave up on you a long time ago.
If I lost you, then you just don't understand what's going on, and you just don't support the idea of democracy and equality.
We explain it in the most basic way possible.
Bye-bye. If you're lost, why don't you get
Bye-bye. So, this is from the National Parent-Teacher Association president. Yes, there is a national PTA.
And it's wonderful, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I've
the
gone to
U.S.
their
Department of
conferences.
Education was created to ensure equal access to education for all Americans, regardless of zip code, ability, race, or economic circumstance. Programs and funding streams administered by the department, including disbursement of Title I funding grants through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and the Office of Civil Rights, serve students, families, and schools that need it most. Dismantling and diminishing the capacity of the department breaks America's promise of education for all children and is a severe threat to ensuring every child has every opportunity to reach their full potential. Continuing. Dismantling the U.S. Department of Education isn't about government efficiency. It's about abandoning our collective responsibility to our children at a time when educational challenges require more, not fewer resources. We all agree that we need to improve our nation's educational system. But to effectively meet the needs of our students, we must all work together to create lasting solutions rather than weakening the educational safeguards designed to protect and support all children. What I get from that is, from the National Parent Teacher Association, is education is and has always been and should always be about a marriage between the teachers, the educators, and the parents. It has always been this. It's just parents forgot that they have to participate in their kids' education.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Right. And they say they're participating with this whole attack approach, and that's not participation. That's being the foot soldiers of what's happening to be destructive.
I was just going to describe what's happening is someone's putting a rifle in their hands and saying, go shoot that guy before they shoot you. Don't ask questions. Just that guy's going to shoot you. Go shoot him.
But yeah, as far as like trying to convince, they're going to find out. The MAGAs, like that guy, they're going to find out. If you don't have kids, then you're not going to get it. Maybe that's the problem. But if you have kids,
well, and I will say, Jeremy,
I'm not saying people that don't have kids don't get it. I'm just saying.
Here's the hook, right? Is what's going to happen is the fallout of all of this, immediate fallout, I will say, is that your local property taxes. I can only speak to Florida because we fund so much of education, but our local property taxes are going to skyrocket.
I didn't even think of that.
To make up for what's happening to attack public schools. And even if people don't have children, they don't like taxes. So what do they think is going to happen?
Right. And like I said at the beginning of the show,
people don't think anymore. That's the problem. No one extrapolates the immediate from the future.
Right.
Look
so
what happens.
If they're trying to take away from the hundreds of billions of dollars a year that the Department of Education federally gives the public school system, if that's gone, like Liz says, where do you think the money's going to come from? So whether you send your kid to private school or not, your taxes probably will go up to help pay for those private schools that you can't afford to send your kid to. Just think about that for a second.
And there are states like mine that do not have state income taxes.
Yep.
In the state of Florida, we don't have that.
Don't
you think that's probably going to be in the pipeline that they have to do that?
Immediately. Immediately. The funding's got to come from somewhere.
90% of children across the United States are in public school settings. So you don't overnight shut down those settings and harm those settings and not expect there to be fallout that will hurt every single person in a community. Years ago, I've always worked on improving schools, and I'm the first one to say, do we need improvement? Yes. There is a lot of history of why schools are doing things in the wrong ways, and I'm the first to be, on that bandwagon for continuous improvement. However, the things that we're being accused of now are not the things that they should be focusing on. And so when you look at things like trying to support your community, businesses that are trying to relocate, look at things like the availability of good schooling for their employees' children, because they don't want to have their employees unhappy with where they're actually being transferred to work. Or if you're developing a new company where you're asking people to work. People care about the availability of education. The majority of people in this country are on the right side of things. They support public schools. They don't agree with book banning. They believe in freedom of speech. And I hate to tell people this, but they believe in equality and equity.
Right.
And because people have used attacks on those things to gather this, vocal majority, it seems, or vocal minority, to do things like go to school board meetings and go to your council meetings and go to state level meetings and push this narrative of we're the enemies because we're public education. It's not going to fly, because what people see is what happens in their own little school, in their own little pocket, and they see good things and they see good teaching. And they feel like they're getting their bang for the buck. You were talking about that. And, so like I said, it's hopefully not Pollyanna, but I've all of my career and even prior to have known that teachers were not at the the level of respect that we should have been.
Agreed.
I mean, and me being an insider, I wasn't the one to be able to raise that issue, right? That's like, patting myself on the back too much.
Like us,
So it takes guys like you two that, really look like you should be MAGA. You got the big beards and, you're ready to go, right?
No.
That's why I love you guys.
Never.
So much.
Gulf of Mexico, baby.
You are.
I hate that I look like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's, beside the point. That's my,
Yeah.
No, I know. We take
funny.
that.
I kid.
But when we see voices that are outside of education now being our advocates, it is remarkable.
Yep.
Because we've been, tooting the horn for years and years and years about, hey, respect us, respect us. Now that we've been so publicly disrespected, people are waking up and saying, wait a minute, I had some really good teachers. Wait a minute, teachers really do a whole lot. And they are learning that, it's one of the most noble, if not the most noble professions in our country.
It might not be the oldest, but it's the most noble.
Yes, it's not the oldest. Although some days I feel like, maybe whatever.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, and I know we got to head out. You said 90% or so of kids are in public schools.
Correct.
There's a reason the United States has the largest per capita incarcerated population on the planet. And there's a reason that once Trump decided to start deporting everyone, private prisons stocks went through the roof. The capitalists in this country realized that one of the most untapped, abusive things to be able to milk dry is education. If 90% of kids go to public school, think of how much money they could make if 90% of kids had to pay to go to school.
Yep. And their first stab at it was very successful, and that was the standardized test craze.
Yep.
Because that was all about profit too.
Yes, it was
designed to show failure.
And just
that's a whole nother show.
They're not going to reduce your property taxes when they get rid of public schools. They're going to find an excuse to keep your taxes the same or raise them. So you're going to now have to pay your property taxes and pay for your kid to go to school.
Yeah. Yeah. Way to go, MAGA. Good choice.
Yeah.
But
Liz wanted to end on this one.
Let me read this one. I just love this. We all place ourselves in danger to one degree or another when we stand up. However, we place our children and our grandchildren in even greater danger when we don't.
Ooh, I like that.
So for all of us, kind of couch warriors that sat back and watched, I mean, myself included at some points of time in my lifetime, it's not the time to just let things unfold. Protest, send letters, telephone your local representatives. I love this empty chair town halls that they're doing across the country where Republican leadership is not showing up to speak to their constituents. How dare they not show up? And it's very impactful. They have angered and enlightened a whole lot of people at this point. And that's why the Republican Party said to their folks, don't go and do those town halls because you'll be attacked. I mean, that means we are making some headway here, even though it feels really discouraging. I'm thinking that we are seeing some movement in good direction.
I do
and I try to, stay as positive. It feels like every day it's another hit. And I'm trying to stay focused on education because that is my wheelhouse. I know specifically
we have to fight based on our expertise.
Right. Yeah. And we have to, I was just going to say real quick, we have to focus on the people that also that did not vote because they're going to have no clue what's about to happen. So when all this shit happens, they're going to be like, what is going on?
But I wanted to bring up this one from a very good friend of the show.
Hey,
something
there you are.
Could be coming together.
I texted
really
him earlier.
Cool. So if you two want to talk about what might be happening, because
we didn't. Yeah, this is totally random too. I like this. Oh, you talking about me or Liz?
Well,
I don't know anything about it.
It's all about connections, right? So I was contacted. It was either yesterday or, it was yesterday, by a Defense of Democracy, their veterans group. The head of that, Diana Patton. Yep.
We know Diana too.
Amazing. And she's been part of our group as well, all along the trajectory of the two. And so she said, hey, we're working on this, this group that's trying to pull together and do something in Washington, D.C. at the end of April. And she kind of explained out, well, of course, my heart started thumping because I'm the child of a World War II veteran.
Oh, wow.
And part of my impetus to keep pushing towards saving democracy is that my dad did not go and face what he faced in order for us
Right.
to say,
That's why I do what I do.
Go ahead. You can have our country. So I love the connections that we're making. And I think that, moving forward, we'll share a lot of information about what's going on. And I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to have Tom back on the show, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
excellent. Yeah. Defense of Democracy and Stop Moms for Liberty are both LinkedIn now.
Sister
And-
That's awesome.
organizations.
Yep. Yeah. And we fully intend to support and help guide this event. I don't know. I don't think he can log on right now, but as you said, you can do another show.
Yeah,
But so it's exciting and it's folding together. Like I said, there's so many things coming at us.
A lot of moving pieces.
And it's meant to be to keep us overwhelmed with what's going on.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
when we can draw connections like the availability of education and our veterans and how those can fold together and do this joint protest movement, I think that's what's going to work in the long run.
Yeah.
I
And if
think
we-
we
if-
have to embrace and understand that at some point, don't mess with the veterans. Because if the right
Are you
loses
kidding
the
me?
veterans, they have nothing. Because they are banking on
Pissed
veterans
off.
getting grumpy and taking out their guns and shooting liberals when it comes down to it. Well, guess what? I don't think that's going to happen now because now you're attacking veterans.
Right.
And I don't
Out
think
in
that's the
open,
group you should
too.
attack. I
Well,
just don't
and
think so.
it is actually happening. They are putting out messaging to veterans to make sure and download all of their medical records because
Yep.
they're messing around with things. Can you imagine that? People that put their lives on the line for this country
Yeah.
have to worry that their records may disappear with, the stroke of a pen.
Yeah,
Elon
that's
and his little
insane.
teenagers
That's
can go
insane.
bebopping around in the VA as well.
What do you mean? We don't have a record of you ever serving in that war. What are
I
you
know.
talking about? You don't get
That's
benefits.
crazy.
You weren't in Vietnam.
Right.
Just so you know, everybody that's out there, if we can raise enough money, I'm committed to go to the protest. That's on April 30th. I will go. My schedule's clear from here on out. I'm going to be focusing on content and trying to do stuff like this. Mike is a little more complicated because he has, like a regular career and all that stuff and a lot more responsibilities than I do, so
I wanna be there.
yeah. I know, right? So if we can raise enough money, I will definitely commit to going to it. If Mike could go, all the more the merrier. But I'm at least saying that at least part of our show, and you don't have to be there. We can always do something remote, figure it out.
We will
Like-
figure something out no matter what.
Yeah, so there's a lot of big stuff coming up, a lot of good stuff coming up. People are protesting peacefully, not just the Tesla's on fire protesters or whatever.
Which we do not advocate.
No, of course not. That's stupid. It's not going to
I
get our point
advocate
across.
funny signs that border on offensive, but I do not advocate any
Yeah.
physical violence.
Right. Yeah. So
Maybe have Tom and I on, an
that's a good idea.
that's a
That's a great
great
idea.
idea.
Yeah, we'll do
and I
that.
can
We'll
link
do that.
Defense of Democracy, and we can have Diana on as well. That'd be
Yeah,
a good
definitely.
That would be a great
So
show.
yeah, if we like I said, our show, at least as a show, we're committed to going to the
Yes.
protest in DC.
Great.
I'm in Pennsylvania, just so you understand logistically how difficult that would be. It's not exactly right down the street. But I mean, hey, I drove 5 hours to New York to do a protest too.
Which I
so-
can't wait for that again.
Yeah, that was fun. We had a good
That was fun.
experience. We want to show you the people in the streets. Like that's what we want to do. Boots on the
Because
ground.
legacy
I don't
media
want to
has
be
given up.
right. I don't want to be behind the desk anymore. Okay, I want to be with a camera, microphones, talking to people in the streets, inspiring people to come out and show the world that we're not just taking this lying down. Because I feel like Liz said, I'm doing this for my father's memory. He fought in 2 wars.
Yeah.
2 wars. And I refuse to let America go to shit. And I honestly, I hate to say it, but I'm glad he's dead, not able to see this happen.
Yeah, I have those feelings. Yep.
You know what I mean? It sounds horrible to say, but oh my God, he would be running around this house. He'd probably have a heart attack because he'd be running around this house blowing gaskets left and right.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and Jeremy, you hit it on the head. To do these kinds of things does take money. And so I know that you have some avenues for people. Well, I'll ask for you then, okay? Because personally, I was not able to attend New York, but I felt like I was part of it because you guys were on the ground and you were broadcasting.
It was cool.
And so for folks that won't be able to go and support veterans in DC, what a great idea to help fund, you being there and giving us some coverage. So
we love
Oh yeah, I did forget to mention there's a GoFundMe link in our description of our video.
There you go.
If you would like to participate and help fund our work, and if you want to see protests, we'll go for you. You know what I mean? It's not like you have to attend, but you can still participate, especially when they're live. You can comment, we can respond. You know what I mean? It's a whole interactive
we worked
thing.
really well
it's a lot
together.
different.
That was the first time we
met. That was the first time we got.
We just like fell into roles, and it was awesome.
It was fun, man. We had a really good time. So, but yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Please like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends about this stuff. Like, we talk real stuff. Like, we're not full of shit. Okay, a lot of the stuff we've been warning you about has come to fruition, and I'm honestly tired of being right. I don't like it. I used to think I would like being right. I know. I used to like.
I want to be wrong.
People like I want to be right, but no, like stop. I just wish things were different, but they're not. And but these are the cards that we've been dealt. So we're gonna deal with it, and we're gonna deal with it out in the open.
Yep.
So thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day, Liz. Thank you.
Bye, everybody, and bye, guys. Thanks as always.
Yep.